Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pursuit of Relentless Podcast. You've got your host here, Elena, and today we are going to get into things right away. I have Jack Allweil with me today, and I'm excited for you guys to get to know him a little bit. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Elena.
Yeah. So tell us your story. How did you get started in entrepreneurship?
It kind of took me getting to the bottom to try to change my life. In 2016, I unfortunately lost my job and I decided to take a trip to Europe. So I took what I called my roots trip, where I went to see where my grandparents grew up in Poland and Hungary. And I actually met my now wife in Vienna, oddly enough. But that trip, I started reading a lot and started listening to some podcasts on the side. And I decided as soon as I got another job, I was going to buy a house and rent out the rooms to make my life a little more robust. And sure enough, I got another job in 2017, bought a house, rented out the rooms, and that gave me some breathing room to kind of pursue other passions. So that's kind of how I got started.
Cool. Tell us about your business a little bit.
Well, I do rentals on the side. It's not a full-time job right now, but I have three properties I acquired in 2018. One was a triplex, and then the other two were single families. And last summer we bought a 7-unit also, and these are all in Michigan. Cool. And the end of last year, we actually bought our first short-term rental, and that's in a condotel. Now it looks like a hotel from the outside, but all the units inside are owned and rented out by a property manager. And that's in South Carolina in Myrtle Beach. And that's kind of cool because we can use it in the down seasons too.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. And I also dabble in the podcasting. My brother and I have a podcast called the Brothers on Books podcast. And we just really like learning. So we read books, we discuss them. If the author is alive and well, we at least invite them on. So we started getting more authors to come on and discuss their books and the big takeaways and, what the average person can take and apply to their own life.
Cool. I love that. Being an author it's a process to say the least. I've been in the process of writing my book for like 3 years now. And I finally finished my manuscript at the end of 2021. And now I'm in the publishing process and trying to find copywriters. And, I'm just like, this is something I never thought I would do. And I really like it though. I think that if you can put out good content and just like share your story with people, even it can change lives. I just finished reading Ryan Stewman's book. So shout out to Ryan. He wrote a book called Hardcore Closer, and it has the C crossed out. So it's Hardcore Loser, but it's like his transformational journey from being in prison to being falsely accused and going back to prison to losing multiple wives and people stealing all his money. And like, it was just crazy to see how he went from that to the person he is today, doing business coaching and like marketing. And I'm just like, wow, man, like you can come so far in such a short amount of time. And I think when you really commit to your vision and your mission, it just kind of all falls into place eventually.
Absolutely. I along those lines, when I started journaling, I felt like my progress got a lot better because you really commit to something and then you note your progress every day.
Yeah.
And I ended up writing, I have a journal on Amazon that I market to actuaries. I work as an actuary, like my 9-to-5 job right now. But there's an exam process and it's brutal. And I had many failures on those. But I felt like it got better once I started journaling and now I use it to attack other goals too.
Yeah. No, I'm in the insurance world too. So like hearing from an actuary is awesome because it's like the back end of that world. And I'm like, wow, there's so much I don't know. And it's just crazy to think about calculating mortality rate, stuff like this. And I'm like, I'm so glad I don't have to do that stuff because I don't have that mathematical brain. I know that this number is bigger than this number, and I like the bigger numbers in people's accounts, I like saving people money. It's a big deal. But I think that when you can share, so for yourself, you wrote it's 15 weeks to pass the actuary exam, right?
Yep.
And that's incredible because you're sharing what knowledge that you got and how you got through it in order to get to where you are today. So that's awesome. What led you to put the journal out?
I felt like I had a lot of success once I started journaling, and I thought it was something that, and I think I'm not going to say depression, but a lot of students really struggle when they go through the exams. And I think part of it is, it's on a curve. So you could prepare very well one time and fail, and then prepare a little less so the next time and still pass. And I think this disconnect is quite frustrating for people. So it's to concentrate on the things you can control and set very measurable goals. Like I will study, 350 hours for this exam, or I'll be able to do all these types of practice problems. It has nothing to do with whether you're going to pass or fail, but there are other measurables that you can gauge yourself against.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good piece right there. Just what you can gauge yourself against is you, right? Like when you're doing journaling and stuff, I find that it really helps me dig into the things that I'm stuck on and the things that I'm like frustrated with. And I'm just sitting there going, why am I not getting to where I want to be? Or, how come I don't have all these listeners? Or, you just get in that rut or that frustration. And I think when you write it out, it helps you go, no, I'm actually doing good. I am doing this stuff. I'm checking it off on my list, and I'm doing phase 2 right now of 75 hard. And the 75 hard journey is, it's insane. It's a little crazy, but
well, what is 75 hard? I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Oh, you're going to have to look it up for sure. It is. Okay. So 2 workouts a day, both have to be 45 minutes. One has to be outdoors, regardless of the weather.
Okay.
So you kind of have to plan that a little bit for sure, especially because I live in northern Alberta, which is very cold and snowy and icy and awful. And I'm grateful that I only got pulled over once by my dog this year. So I'm like, yay, that's a win. But so you do 2 workouts a day, you drink a gallon of water. So I got my gallon there and I just put it into my cup, and then it forces me to drink more. So staying super hydrated, 10 pages of a personal development book every day. So I do that first thing in the morning to get it out of the way, and then I won't miss it. You have to do a progress picture every day. And I think that is like journaling for your eyesight, because then you're able to actually see your progress, right? Even though you don't feel like you're making progress. But if you look at day 1 and day 30, for instance, you're going to see that difference. If you look at yourself at day 75, you're going to see that difference of the compound pounding, right? No alcohol, no cheat meals, right? Those are, you have to stick to a diet plan. So that's the program. And it's just, it doesn't sound like it's that hard until you do it. And it's not hard to do one day. It's not hard to do a week. It's hard when you're on day 60 and you're like, can I just eat that ice cream now? Like, I'd really just want to not exercise today. So like right now I'm icing my ankle because I had like an ankle spasm, and I'm got a bar class later, and I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. So I put some Pain Be Gone on it and some ice, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to get through it because I'm only on day 7. Right. So I got a long ways to go, but phase 2 is only a 30-day window. And it's, phase 1 is a little bit more challenging. You have to do 3 critical tasks outside of your regular tasks. And then you have to do cold shower, 5-minute cold shower, and 10-minute visualization every day. So
cold shower, I'm a big fan of. We actually read the Wim Hof method where they talk about cold exposure a lot. So
I do it every day now.
I'm on that train now too.
I love it, man. Even my hair's nicer. Like, cause I have curls, right? So the second that it sees moisture, it just gets big and frizzy and awful. So with the cold shower, I rinse the conditioner out of my hair with the cold shower, and it just locks in that moisture, and I don't have frizzy hair that day. I'm like, fan-freaking-tastic. That sounds great. You know, and just little things like that. People don't think about having a cold shower. They're like, that sounds terrible. I'm like, well, it is, but it's so good for your body. It helps you detoxify. It helps you reduce inflammation. It helps you get into your body and out of your head, right? Like when you're standing in the shower, I like to close my eyes for that 5 minutes, and I set a 5-minute timer. And then once the timer goes off, I put it on warm, you know, and then I'll just get my body warm again, and then I'll get out of the shower. And I find that is the best way for me to do it. I start off cold and finish warm, but I always do it coming in from my workout, so I'm already warm, and then I don't feel the cold as much. I don't know. It's just feels good to cool down. You know, it's just a different way of doing things. But I focus on my breathing, and I focus on my goals and like where I'm going, instead of focusing on how cold I am. You know, because I don't think you also have to do it like straight cold water. No, I do it like uncomfortable, just a little bit uncomfortable, you know. I find that works the best for me.
Yeah, I do hot to begin, and then I go all the way to the coldest setting. But I can only, I think when I started, I was doing like 10 seconds. I'm up to like a minute tops.
Yeah.
But it's intense. It definitely makes you be present.
So present. Try it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun. See, I don't do all the way cold, but I know it would be helpful for sure. I've seen my friends Crystal and Jason, they do an ice bath, and I'm like, that sounds awful. Like, you couldn't get me to do that. Like, I could do like jump in the ocean for 5 seconds, but like actually sitting there going, I'm gonna go jump in this ice water. No, I can do a cold shower, right? Because you can't visualize it. You just have to do it. And then it's not so bad, because then once you've done it, you're like, I'm a badass. You know, you set yourself up with that confidence, and it's never something I would have done prior. But I think after I've done it the first time, I was like, oh, I see why people say to do it, and Absolutely. Why the super successful people do it. Like, I look at Tony Robbins. If you watched his, he has a YouTube video that I was watching. I don't know what it's called, but check out Tony Robbins on Netflix. Sorry, on Netflix, not on YouTube. But it shows his pool, and it has like ice around the rim. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I could not submerge myself in there for like 5 or 10 minutes, you know. But I go, what's he doing that I'm not doing? Because he's 100 steps ahead of me, you know. So it's pretty crazy just to see what the successful people do for their habits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when it comes to being in entrepreneurship, what's your favorite part about it?
I think the best I can say is that you get to keep what you kill, kind of like it's more, you have more skin in the game. I hear a lot of my friends when, you know, the year's up and they're getting assessed on how they're doing at their jobs, and they might be upset with their pay raise, or they don't feel like they're measured appropriately, or their goals are kind of moving targets at their jobs. Yeah. But I guess when you're out on your own, you're the boss. Like, if you're not doing well, like, you have no one to look at but yourself, and you have to change what you're doing if you're not happy with the results. So, but at the same time, you get to reap a lot of the benefits when good things happen.
Yeah, I agree. And making an impact is really fun too. Like, just even people watching you and going, wow, I didn't think that was even possible. I'm like, okay, you go do it now, like go for it, follow your dreams. And like, as a financial person, I sit there and I hear every single day that people just want to be comfortable. And I'm like, define that. Because if you don't have a definition around what you're looking for in your life, how are you supposed to create it? It's so important. So I think that when people can get that clarity and have that focus and go, okay, well, yeah, most people are going to say they want to be millionaires today. Well, that's not how it goes, right? You got to do the work to get there. And it takes a lot of work. And people are like, oh, you're crazy. And I hear it all the time. They're like, oh, you work all the time. I'm like, no, I don't work all the time. I'm like, yes, I read my book this morning. Is that working? That's not working. That's personal development, or going for a hike, or doing my dishes. That's not working. It's stuff I have to do to keep a good household and keep my sanity. But I think that there's a lot of misconceptions around entrepreneurship, that you have to go all in, or you have to, just focus on one thing, or you have to be really good. You have to niche this. And I think that I like that you're in multiple businesses, because you can still have your cake and eat it too. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that that's really neat.
Yeah, I think with me, like, and I kind of emphasize this in the journal about just staying balanced, because I actually felt when I was having a really hard time, I had failed it was the 7th actuarial exam 3 times. And I just felt like I was in a rut and I needed to like switch it up a little bit. And I saw a YouTube video on a man that ran an ultra marathon. And the concept of that was like mind boggling. I could not fathom possibly doing that. And I had hip surgery in 2018. So it was really not in my mind to do anything like that. But I thought, maybe and I played a ton of soccer growing up, and I thought maybe if I had something physical to work towards too, that it might help me in other areas of my life. So I started training for the half marathon, and sure enough, it greatly benefited my studying habits and just how I felt. And I ended up passing that time. So, and so, some people thought, well, like, shouldn't you be studying? Like every time I said I was going to go, run 5 or 6 miles or whatever in preparation for that, I was like, well, I mean, even if I take like an hour of my day to go run, I feel like I'm much more effective when I go back to study. So
yes,
I do greatly encourage balance in one's life.
I 100% agree with you. And I love that you brought that up, because there's so many people that don't incorporate fitness into their life and they wonder why they're not doing well. And I'm like, it's because your brain's just messed up. You don't have time to get it out. Right. And I think that I'm my most creative when I'm going for a hike or running or something along those lines, being physical, because you're just trying to get your head out of the fact that you're like breathing heavy, but that's when your body's the most oxygenated. It's when you're in the most peak state. So for instance, when I was doing 75 hard, the first little bout there is when I got pregnant, and I was like the most active and like, yeah, this is awesome. And I felt great. And then boom, I got pregnant. And I was like, cool. And then I stopped doing 75 hard. I started phase 1 and then I lost it. And I was like, dang it, this is awful. But then it took me going back and doing it again to get my confidence back and to feel good again and just go, okay, no, I've got this, right? So now I'm hoping with phase 2, phase 3, that I'll be successful again and actually carry full term this time. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm my best, then I can like really focus on keeping my energy high and not having the stagnation in my body where I'm just like sitting there and stewing on my anger or my frustration or whatever it is. No, I'm getting it out, right? Bye. I don't need that. I don't need that negativity, right? Because we are our own worst enemies, 100%. And I think that when you're in that peak state, it really helps you get to that next level. Totally. So I did a half marathon in 2020, and that was my first one ever.
Okay.
It was
cool. I think that was mine I did it for it aligned like with my birthday, my 30th birthday. Thought it would be good to shake it up. So then I did a half marathon around my 30th and then another half around my 31st. And I did one more. How many have you done so far?
Just the one. And then my physio said, never again, Elena, because I have really bad knees. And she's like, just stop. And I have a torn LCL from playing rugby. And so I fixed that. And then I ran a half marathon. And then I did a 5-hour convention where I was seated. So I was like sitting on the floor stretching after my marathon. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to be fine. And I just hydrated a ton and it was good. And then the next day I flew to Kelowna and then saw my grandpa. So I was like literally sitting on a couch all day because he's in his 80s. And we just hung out. And then my husband picked me up the next day in Kelowna and we drove to Banff, which is like a 10-hour drive. And so from super active to very stagnant, the second that I got out of the vehicle, and I was like excited, like super excited. It was going to be my first night with my husband, alone, just the two of us after our wedding. Cause like we stayed with my sister-in-law and yes, we got our time together, but it wasn't like alone, like we didn't have our time alone. And so I was like, I'm going to get some action tonight. I was like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. The second that I stepped out of the truck, I fell on my ass and I tore my LCL again. And I was like,
oh my God.
Damn it. I was so mad. I was like, Kyle, you legit have to carry me. Like you have to carry me into the hotel room because I couldn't move. And then he had to get me some ice and I was just really angry and clearly did not get any action that night because I was not able to move. But so my physio was like, nope, you're done. And I said, okay. So I still walk every day and I have a really long step. So, cause I have super long legs. So I walk fast, and that's what I can do now. And I do yoga. That's my exercise now. I can't play rugby anymore because I keep ending up in the hospital. So it's not.
I've stopped pretty much playing soccer. Sometimes I'll juggle, but my main thing these days is pickleball. I don't know if you've ever heard of that
I've heard of it. Yeah. I've never played though.
It's pretty fun. I've been enjoying it. It's like a mix between ping pong and tennis.
Yeah.
Slightly smaller court.
That's cool. Anything that you have to like run and be super agile is not my forte for sure. Because I don't have that knee strength anymore to pivot and be super agile. And I'm like, dang, but I'm very flexible and strong. So yoga does really good for me. But today I'm doing a bar class. So it should be interesting.
Cool. Like, so does that mean you had a COVID wedding?
We did have a COVID wedding. Yeah. We got married in 2020 in September. And it was the only wedding that year at the venue. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
We got married at McLean's Mill in Port Alberni, and it's an old historic mill that still is like able to function, but it's been turned into a museum. So it's just phenomenal. It's in an ancient forest. We got married under a water tower. It was beautiful.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So we had fun. Lots of fun. But it was interesting having a COVID wedding for sure. We weren't allowed to actually use the venue. We had to be outside. So we had tents set up outside, but it was beautiful still. Like we just had the DJ set up outside and people weren't allowed to leave their tables, stuff like that. Like it was kind of dumb how it was all set up, but we had fun. We were done by 9:00 and we went back to my house in BC and just had a bonfire. And this cool. Is it, guys. Like, this is what we like to do. So I was like, I get to take my dress off and take my hair out and just like sit by the fire and have a beer, and it was really lovely.
Very cool.
Just keep it simple. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like it that way. And I got some flack from a few of my friends. Like one of my best friends, we don't really talk much anymore because she just didn't show up for me. And I was like, okay, that hurt, like someone I've known for 28 years to just like say that would be my bridesmaid and then just like text me saying they're not coming and like not take my phone calls after that. I'm like, that's dumb.
I take it was kind of about COVID restrictions and she not liking your views.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's fine. Thankfully, my sister filled in and it was good. But yeah, it was a frustrating learning experience. I got to do like a 10-page slideshow for the health board to tell them what I was doing to like protect my family. And I'm like, clearly not trying to get my family sick, like we're going to stay outside. It was funny. We did like 2 chairs, 6 feet, 2 chairs, 6 feet. And we just like spaced everyone out really good. And then the bridesmaids and groomsmen had to stand like 6 feet apart. So it was interesting. But it worked out well for sure. I'm glad that we did it when we did it. And yeah. And then I ran the marathon literally like 6 days later.
Wow.
So I was in pretty good shape at that point. I was like, yeah, but it was really neat. I was able to train with my dog and I have a Rottweiler and she was like awesome. Yeah. She did so good. She got up to like 12K. And then I had to call my husband and be like, you should come get Ellie. Like she's having a hard time. And
that's a lot.
So I met up with him and just like ran on the spot while I was like getting her into the car. And yeah, I just finished my run and it was great. I think that when you can persevere and like push yourself to that extreme, you learn so much about yourself too. Like marathons are a mindfuck for sure. Like
that's what I tell all my friends that are even debating or talking about it. I'm like, it's really not physically, your body can do it. It's more just, getting your mind around, like forcing yourself to do it.
Yeah, I did. It's called Melissa's Race and it's in Banff. And then they changed it to a virtual event. And I was like, all right, well, guess I'm running my first half marathon solo. And I thought a whole bunch of my team was going to do it with me. And then I ended up being the only one who actually did it when it switched to virtual. And I was like, I committed to myself that I was going to do this. And so I stuck to it. And it was really a big like win for me because I was just like, wow, I did it, and they mailed me a little, not trophy, but like a plaque type thing, a shirt and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was nice. So yeah, I don't know. It is just an interesting challenge, definitely. And I don't think I would do it the same way I did it if I was to do it again, because I ended on a hill.
Okay.
That was dumb. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be easy, just like running down this hill, run over there, come back. But then like the last kilometer was straight uphill and my legs were jello and I had run out of water like so long ago, like 5 kilometers ago. And I was starting to get hot out because I was in the mountains and I was like, this is awful. And then I was like, Elena, you can do it. And I just like went live on Facebook and I was like, hey guys, I'm struggling so hard right now. Like just to, those photos of yourself when you're like, oh, like I'm okay, I'm alive, but was secretly struggling hard. But it's in those moments when you build that belief in yourself, right? Like that confidence it's done in those moments because you're like, I did it. I didn't die. I did it. Yep. And then the aftermath occurred.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be able to look back and say, like, if you're coming up with something hard in your life, to look back and like, oh, okay, I persevered on that obstacle or challenge. And I would say as far as like life changing, any type of event, the half marathon, I think did the most for me of any type of challenge I've done.
Yeah.
Because it was really something I did not think I would be able to do.
Yeah.
And it's really reframes things in your mind.
Were you a runner before?
Really just to prepare for soccer. I mean, I loved playing soccer. So, I mean, I did run a lot, but not just to run. It was normally with soccer in mind. But it was nice to train for something again.
I had never run. Like I'm not a runner. And I did there's an app that's like 0 to 5K, or it's like couch to 5K and then 5K to 21K. And I was like, okay, so I literally started and I could not run for 1 minute straight. And then you get up to like 10 minutes and you're like, oh my goodness, I have to run for 10 minutes. Are you joking me? And then you do it and you're like, okay, now I can rest for 2 minutes and like walk it out. And then you kind of you build that momentum where you want to continue to run. And then when you get to like half an hour, you're like, wow, I just ran half an hour. And remember when I couldn't run 1 minute, But I think that's a good analogy for life too, because when people start out in entrepreneurship, it's that 1 minute sprint that you're like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. But as you go and as you adapt and as you grow, it gets easier and easier and easier. And then challenges are going to come up like, oh, my knee busted, or like whatever happens for the people, or it gets hot out, or you got to put your dog in the truck and keep going, whatever it is that comes your way, you figure it out. Like you figure it out. And I think that it helps you really move forward as a human when you understand that it's one step at a time. And you just have to focus on one step at a time and still breathing. Like just don't stop breathing and you're still going to keep progressing forward.
It's just that next step that you need to do. Just focus on that very next step.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So a lot of my listeners are fairly new entrepreneurs, or people who are aspiring to be an entrepreneur, for example, or get out of their 9 to 5 that they don't necessarily enjoy, which was like when I was a heavy equipment operator, I literally was like, please don't make me do this. Like, I want to get out of here so bad, but I just didn't have that faith in myself to take that leap and go, okay, well, I'm going to try something new. Right. So what advice would you give someone who is considering, for instance, writing a book or doing something different than what they're doing right now?
I would say, I personally would say not to give up your day job. I would say try to dabble on the side while you have some steady income, just because you honestly might not like it. You might think you're really going to like something. And then when you dabble or start doing it, it might be awful. Like a lot of people think real estate sounds good, but maybe after you're on the phone or on hold with like utility companies or dealing with the property managers or renters, you might not like it. So I would say try to dabble a little on the side. I would also say, in terms of just focus on yourself. Because I think one thing I used to I guess, worry about other people outside of myself too much. And one thing I found is I think people greatly overestimate the influence they can have on other people, but underestimate what they can do themselves. Mm-hmm. So just trying to focus on yourself. And I honestly think journaling and creating small mini goals really helps, because if you don't want to get overwhelmed, it's got to be manageable. Mm-hmm. And staying balanced, but just taking small incremental steps each day. And eventually they'll transform into really big things.
1% a day for 100 days is 100% better. Mm-hmm. And when you can focus on yourself and being your best self, I talked a lot about this in my last episode with Alicia Ober, and she was just talking about how she takes a little bit of her day before her kids get up. And I'm like, that is such a good tip, because if you can just take that time for yourself and focus on what you need to do to get yourself to that next level in your life, whatever that is for you, it is so impactful. If you just take half an hour or an hour or whatever it is and read your goals, or read a good book, or do some personal development, or listen to an audio, or go for a walk, or whatever it is. I think that when you can focus on yourself, like you were saying, it's so powerful, because you really discover what makes you tick and what makes you excited. And I agree with you that I wish I didn't go full time as soon as I did, because I was making like 30 grand part-time. And I was like, fuck it. I hate my job. I'm going full-time. And then I was like, whoa, I really don't know what I'm doing. Like, how do I create steady cash flow? How do I, like make this work? But thankfully my husband was a big help, but so was my team. And it's just like, you figure it out, but I 100% agree that I should have waited a little bit longer until I knew what I was doing. But guess what? I was cocky and I thought I knew what I was doing. And then once you progress 5 years, 10 years into business, you realize how little you actually know about running a business. And then you're like, oh, we're all just learning. And like even my mentors, like Ed Milet and Andy Frisella, we just did an RTA call the other day and they were talking about their journeys. And I was like, and like staying focused, and how Andy had to pick up a job painting stripes on like the grocery store parking lots and stuff to pay for his business, because it took him 10 years to figure out how to run the business the way that he wanted it to. He said he made just over $50,000 in a 10-year span in his business and kept it up. And I'm like, wow. And now he's chasing Nike, like the guy's doing it right. And it's just crazy to see how someone can go from zero to hero because of contribution and focusing on impact and focusing on just helping people. And I'm like, that's all we got to do is just focus on being our best self and really giving of ourselves in a way that we know we can help people. So I love that you wrote a book, because I couldn't imagine doing an actuary exam. Like, no, I'm not that logical, right? So it takes a certain type of person to do every type of business. So I love that you have given that tip, because there's so many people that are like, I'm just going to go start my own business. I know a guy who started a glass business where he's like replacing windshields and stuff. And then I called him 6 months later and he's back on site. And I'm like, I thought you started a business, man. And he's like, oh yeah, that was too hard. And I'm like, yes, it is hard to run a business and build clientele and, understand how it all works. But if you only give it 6 months, you're not going to get that far, right? You got to give it 6 years. But like you said, if you've got that steady cash flow, well, book some time on your days off, right? So that's what I did in the first 2 years of my business. I booked like 4 or 5 appointments on my days off, and then I'd take 2 or 3 days off to recuperate. And then I'd go back to work for my 6 days, and I worked 3 days, 3 nights, 6 off. So I had the perfect schedule because I worked 50% as an employee and 50% as an entrepreneur. And that helped me build my base, right? It helped me build my confidence in myself and my abilities and my sales skills. And trust me, I am far from perfect, but I am a good teacher and I'm good at recruiting, and I'm like just focused on giving back to people. And I think that when you do that, everything will come to you. So I love that.
Yeah, that sounds good. I like that schedule. Yeah. Part-time stable, part-time entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, and it served me really well because it taught me what I didn't want and what I did want. I didn't want to work at a place that didn't value me. I didn't want to work at a place that I couldn't get a promotion. I didn't want to work at a place that I couldn't have ownership in, And so when I'm at the company I'm with now, I look at that and I go, they give me freedom. They give me flexibility. They give me the opportunity to grow my own business within a company. And I'm like, yep, that's awesome. Like I have freedom. There's no better feeling than working for a company that values you and actually listens and goes, what do you want to see on the website? What do you want to see in the sales team? Like, what do you want to see? And I think that that's a really great benefit for someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, right? Someone who's working within a company. It's not like, I think the thing, to backpedal a little bit, the thing that I think that we need to do is teach people that it's not about just showing up. It's not about just showing up. You have to do the work, and it's going to be hard work. And that's why people make big bucks. is because they're willing to do the hard work. And it's such a misconception nowadays that being an entrepreneur is like so fun and easy. I'm like, clearly you've never been an entrepreneur. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just crazy. But it can be fun. It is fun. And I think once you find what you're passionate about and you're excited about, then you'll create everything that you want in your life. But it takes hard work, and it takes years and years and years and years, and coaching and being coachable and being accountable to yourself and figuring out what your blind spots are and all the things in order to be a successful entrepreneur. But I love that we got to connect today. I think it's going to help a lot of people. And I would like for people to get access to you more. So where can they find you?
Well, I'm the only Jack Allweil on LinkedIn. So if you want to just direct message me, that's probably the best place. So I have a couple books on Amazon, and my brother and I run the Brothers on Books podcast. So that's brothersonbooks.com. And we're on all the podcasting platforms. So yeah, that's where they can find me.
Cool. I'm excited to listen to that too. As you can see, I'm an avid reader. I love to read. I never did before, guys, though. So don't get discouraged if you're not a reader. It's a skill that you can develop. And I think that it's the number one thing, like you were saying, it's the number one thing that kind of sparked that fire in you to go, no, I do want a better life. And yeah, so go read some good books. How to Win Friends and Influence People, stuff like that. Think and Grow Rich, really great books. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We have an episode on Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Cool.
Trying to think. We kind of run the gamut. It's mostly nonfiction, but we've done discussions about like the Everest disaster that was Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. That was kind of a different one. We did a Pirates book with my godmother.
Cool.
We had Nick Batti on to discuss Bitcoin, Layered Money, his book. I'm thinking coming up, we have a discussion on options trading with the guy that runs Options Boot Camp, Mark Longo. So that should be cool. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place, but it's fun. Opens your eyes up to the possibilities.
Yeah, that's the beauty of books, though. There's fiction, there's nonfiction, and there's workbooks. There's all sorts of different books out there. And the thing I love about reading is that you can learn a lesson from someone else's mistake. And it means that you don't have to make that mistake yourself. So I think that's really powerful that you're reviewing, like going through books and stuff. So cool. I'm excited.
Yeah. And when you're done with your book, we'll have to have you on.
I would love that. Yeah. It's in the publishing stages now. So we are getting it going, but I'm super excited. Anyways, that is our time for today. So thank you again for being on the show. I enjoyed talking about my marathon. I'm like,
yeah, thanks so much for having me, Elaine.
Little brag on myself. I'm like, cool. I guess I'm super proud of that. So I'm like, I got to check it off my bucket list to run a marathon, which I never thought was going to be possible. But when you challenge yourself, you can accomplish beautiful things. So awesome. Thanks for listening, guys. If you got value in today's show, make sure you share it with a friend and give us a subscribe button, all that good stuff. But for today, that is all we've got. So see you next time on Pursuit of Relentless Podcast. Signing out.